Welcome back to Coffee with Krav. Hopefully you have your cup of coffee or whatever drink that you like to have, and welcome back. We skipped last month because of the holidays, so we have a great session today, and I know that you're going to be really going to enjoy this. We have the 20th anniversary of 9/11. I'm sure you've seen TV shows and specials on it. And this is 9/11 was one of those events that happened where you remember exactly where you were. I remember where I was. I remember watching that South Tower get hit, the second one get hit, and then later on watching those buildings in horror, those buildings go down, and that event really was the deadliest attack on U.S. soil, with over 3,000 people that passed away. And that day also had a lot of acts of heroism. If you remember Flight 93 that left from Newark, where it crashed in Pennsylvania, the passengers overpowered the assailants, and things could have been really a lot worse. So there was also smaller acts, but equally important acts of heroism, and we're going to be talking about one of those today. So I am very psyched and happy to bring my friend Matthew J. Weiss here. Let me read his bio. Matthew is a lawyer who turned award-winning filmmaker at the age of 48. This transformation occurred after Matthew first heard of the story of Wells Remy Crowther, the man in the red bandana. Without any filmmaking experience or training, but plenty of passion, he embarked on a 6-year mission to get it right for Wells. Narrated by Gwyneth Paltrow, Man in the Red Bandana has garnered numerous awards and critical acclaim. Matthew has gone on to other projects, including producing the feature film Vault with Chaz Palminteri and Don Johnson. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate being here, and I look forward to sharing a cup of coffee with you.
Okay, great. Well, let's go backwards. Your training is in law. You're an attorney, and then at 48, you decided to become a filmmaker. Has film always been in your blood? Did you make videos as a little kid?
Actually, no. I love movies. I always liked watching movies, but I never had a bucket list item to make a film. I was just an attorney with my own law firm in Manhattan. Our niche is specializing in fighting traffic tickets, speeding tickets, red light tickets, moving violations, anything bad behind the wheel that you do, we can help. And then our law firm covers the whole city of New York, from the Hamptons to Buffalo. So I was focusing myself on being an attorney and entrepreneur, building and growing a brand and a business. So along the way, I went to lunch with my banker. His name was Jeff Crowther, because I started using Hudson Valley Bank. And over lunch, he told me the story about his son, Wells, and I was just blown away. I literally thought it was one of the most incredible stories that I ever heard. And in quick succession, I said 3 things. What an amazing story. Everyone needs to hear this story. I want to share this story with everyone. And as I said, without any experience, training, and never took a class in filmmaking, never read a book on filmmaking, but with a ton of passion, I wanted to share the story and let as many people hear about Wells's heroism that day as possible. And in part because I loved the fact that Wells was always a giver. Even as a young adult, he would look out for others first. And I felt sharing his story would hopefully encourage others to think a little bit less about themselves, a little bit more about others. And even
Wouldn't that be nice, right? In this society, wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't it be nice? Just a little bit. And it could be as simple as holding the door open for someone who's trailing you out of a building, or giving up your seat on the bus or subway for someone. Just any act of selflessness, just doing something for the sake of it, whether, whatever it might be. And obviously Wells, what he did that day, which we'll get into, was incredible. It was, he gave his life to save 10 total strangers, if not more. I just felt this needed to be told. And so making a documentary, I started doing the research, and after the Crowther family gave me permission to make this film, and I quickly learned that documentaries generally don't make money. They generally lose money. In fact,
I want to get to that. I want to get to that in a second. I want to go back to the New York traffic ticket law firm that you have,
sure.
And because I think that's an important point before we get to the filmmaking, because people might be thinking, oh, he's running a business. How does he have time to be a filmmaker? So you have thought through the process, and you kind of automated that process. Can you talk about the key items that helped free up your time so that you can pursue the projects?
Of course, Mark. That's a great question, actually. I'm glad you asked it. So I was walking with a friend of mine after a business event, and he said to me something I really struck with me, which was, my business is for my life is not my business. My business is for my life is not my business. And what he meant by that is his business should support him having the life, or his best version of his life that he can have. And when you're in your business, doing it, selling and putting out fires and working inside the business, doing things every day, it's almost impossible to get yourself freed up, which was your question. How do you free yourself up from your business? And so that led me to shift from working in my business to working on my business. And what I mean by working on your business would be working on systems and processes that will allow you to function efficiently, profitably, and maybe they require an investment of time, but once you've accomplished that project, it reaps dividends for years and years to come. And so what I did is I basically wrote a list of all my responsibilities for my law firm. What are the things that I do? What do they require me and depend on me to do? And I looked at that list and I said, of those items, which ones should I no longer be doing? Should I just stop doing? And I like to call that abdicate. What should I abdicate? And so, for instance, one item was real estate closings. We were doing the purchase and sale, representing buyers and sellers of residential apartments in Manhattan and Long Island and Westchester. And those deals always were thorny, always had an issue, got delayed, rescheduled. There was an issue about a certificate of occupancy for a deck or an enclosed porch, and just always delayed it, always was a hassle. And while I made a lot more money than one traffic ticket, traffic ticket, we charged $350 to $500. And on a closing, I could charge $2,000, $2,500. So that's like 10 to 1, right? But they just gunked up the system, slowed down the process of us focusing on our core business, which I decided we needed to stop. And so that, that's giving up fees and referring them out to other people or other lawyers, I should say. But we made that list. And so now I narrowed my list down by abdicating certain items. So now the next step was to say, okay, on this list, what can we automate, which is what you referenced earlier? What systems and processes can we set up so that things that I am doing now no longer need to be done, and maybe even some of my staff as well. And so we created certain automated tools that allow for no human being to touch it. So, for example, a lot of people would call up and want to know how many points a ticket was. Well, on our website, we created a free online tool called the Point Calculator, and you just enter some data and you get dispensed to you the number of points. For example, a tailgate ticket would be 4 points. So now you have that available, and it saved us that effort to talk to people about that when we rather talk to them about hiring us and what we can do for them. And so we were educating people. So that was just one of many examples of what we automated. So now my list started here is cut down, and now the final list is, all right, what on here can I delegate? So it was abdicate, automate, and then delegate. What can I give to other people, delegate, so that I don't have to do it? And training with people was a key factor, but also the hardest one, and I'm sure the entrepreneurs that are listening now will agree readily, which is sales. No business owner can sell their service or product less than anyone else. They're the best salesperson for their own service or product. And I know that I can sell the service of fighting a traffic ticket better than anyone. But my light bulb moment was when I realized that 80% of me is better than 100% of me. 80% of me is better than 100% of me. And what I mean by that is if I can train someone to be 80% as good as me and make those sales, maybe not as many, but almost as many, 4 to 5 as me, then that would free up literally hours of my time every day, hours of time. And the most precious resource, the one we cannot buy, is our time, especially since we don't know how much time we have. You know, I just looked at my college reunion. We have a 40-year reunion coming up. And on the list, you know, I'm turning 60 along with my colleagues, and there's 17 people that have already passed away on that list.
Wow.
Out of a class of about 350, 400. So, you know, we don't know when we're going to die. And we need, you know, you've heard carpe diem, you know, live every day. But unless you free up your time so that you can pursue those life pursuits that you enjoy, that are rewarding, fulfilling for you, then you're going to end up not living the life that's best for you, I would say.
Matt, that's an awesome message. That's an awesome message for the audience. It really is. It's always great to have that reminder that, you know, life is precious and that we want to be able to do the things that we love doing. So that's great. So now,
hold on one second, Mark. Let me just build on that one more thing, because you love the message. I want to build on that because anything you could do to save time, you need to do. So like in my house, we have scissors in 6 different rooms. There's no way I'm going to spend 30 seconds walking to get a scissor when I can have one right here nearby for me, you know? So, and it may sound silly. Oh, you only save 30 seconds. But if you save 30 seconds 3-4 times a day, and you multiply that by 7 days a week, by 4 months or 4.5 weeks in a month, that pays dividends, just like interest compounding. It pays dividends of freeing up your time. Amazon is the greatest thing ever. Why would I want to go to a store, look for a parking spot, deal with people, wait on a cashier line, actually have to look down aisles for something where I can't find it, when I could click, and it comes to my house in 2 days? Why would I want to do that?
Very efficient. I'm not sure why you need so many scissors. What are you cutting up? But you don't have to answer that. It's okay. It's all right. So, so for you were telling the story about Wells. It's an amazing story. I got a lot of questions about that. Can you just give, for the audience, for those who've never heard the story, can you give maybe a summary about that, this amazing story, and then we'll get into more detailed questions.
Sure. And this will be a quicker version, but still may put the hairs in the back of your head standing up. Sure. So Wells Crowther was 24. As I said, he was a kid that always looked out for others. Played college lacrosse for Boston College. That's why I'm wearing my BC red bandana BC shirt today. He worked at a as an investment banker at Sandler, O'Neill and Partners on the South Tower, which you mentioned earlier was the second building to get hit. He was on the 104th floor, and he called his mom and left her voicemail. He said he was okay, and then the building collapsed, as you know, 56 minutes later from the impact, and they never saw him or heard from him again. And eventually they realized after about a week that he didn't make it out. They had a memorial service for him without a body, which was commonplace for most, families that lost someone that day. And then his body was discovered in March, some 6 months later. And so Wells's mom, Allison, in her heart, just kept looking for her son, even though she knew it was irrational and crazy. She used that, and by the way, she used that word irrational in the film, but she read magazines and newspaper articles, watched documentaries and news stories, and just never gave up. Even after they found his body, they never gave up looking for him. And now we're in May of 2002. So, it's 8 months later, and the New York Times came out with a lengthy article with different survivors, what these people saw, how they got out. And Allison is reading it, and she sees 2 women who both said that they were saved, led up and out in the South Tower by a man with a red bandana on his face. And Wells always carried a red bandana. It was a habit he got into. His friends would tease him about it, but he always had that bandana. And in fact, he once told his friend, with this bandana, I'm going to change the world. And so Allison knew immediately that that had to have been her son. Like, who would have a random ordinary object like that, on them? Like, just sounded too close to home. So she sends photos to both the women, Ling Young and Judy Ween, who both positively ID'd Wells as the person that saved them, and then met with them at their home for a barbecue. And through their accounts, the Crowther family, for the first time, were able to learn how Wells Crowther spent the last hour of his life. He put out fires. He extricated people that were trapped. He carried a woman down 17 flights from 78 to 61, went back up, let another group down a few flights, and then went back up and got a few more people down. My research shows that he at least saved 10 people that day, all strangers to him.
Absolutely amazing. And for reference, he was on the 104th. He was located on the 104th floor. The building was hit between 77 and 85.
Correct.
And only 18 people survived above that 85th floor. And like you said, he was probably the reason that 10 of those 18 people, at least of the 10 of those people, survived, right?
Exactly right. And I appreciate your pre-interview research. You really did a great job, Mark. Yeah, only 18 people made it at or above that impact. And one of the things that I needed or wanted to do when I made the film was to add to the story, to advance the story. I didn't want to just rehash what other news outlets had already said about Wells, because why would I want to do that if I'm, making this comprehensive story about Wells? And I felt obligated to come up with additional information. And that information about the 18 that were at or above where the plane hit, making it out, was not uncovered by me. It was recovered, by other journalists that did some, research and came up with it. And certainly Wells's story was not uncovered by me. Allison and the New York Times uncovered that, as you heard earlier. But I was the first to connect those two stories to one another and connect Wells to saving 10 of those 18. And certainly saving 10 strangers is incredible to begin with. But when you're saving 10 people that statistically likely were to die, it's even more incredible, because 599 people died at or above where that plane hit in the South Tower. And in the North Tower, not a single person made it out above the plane impact, which was a higher level. But still, that was both plane impacts created this line of death, is what I refer to it in the film. And we explain in the movie why one tower is different than the other and why no one made it in the North Tower, and stairwell animations and all that other stuff to kind of let the viewer understand what actually transpired and how Wells found this one functional staircase. And it was blocked partially, but they were able to, make it through.
And Wells, although he was an investment banker, he, as a kid, dressed in fireman uniform. He always wanted to be a fireman, and he actually trained a bit to be a fireman. So those instincts came out that day, right?
100%. So he was this high school kid that was a volunteer fireman or junior firefighter in Upper Nyack, New York. So he had some training. He certainly knew about the skills that are involved with firefighting and safety and helping others and staying low with the smoke and things like that. And in fact, that's why he put the bandana over his face, to protect them from the smoky air, right? And certainly that those instincts and training kicked in, even though this was 6 years earlier when he had that training and that experience.
And you mentioned that the stairway, the A stairway, he helped people go down, and then, like a fireman, even though there's terrible things going on, instead of wanting to save himself and go downstairs, he kept on going back up and getting more people. That's a hero. That's incredible.
It's a real true life hero and a superhero, right? Because he had his magic item. A lot of superheroes have a cape or a shield. His superhero item was his bandana. And his family and friends were very upset that they found his body in the lobby. And even after saving these people, he still managed to get down to the ground level and was just a few hundred feet from safety. And they were frustrated, upset, disappointed, obviously crushed that he didn't make it out. And what they found out is that he was found in the lobby, but he was found with a group of firefighters and a Jaws of Life. And those firefighters had just called in that they were going up to 78 where Wells was, had been, I should say. And they realized Wells didn't escape because not because he didn't want to. He had elected to stay and go with those firefighters back up a fourth time to that 78th floor to help others.
So he started at the 104th floor, came down, helped people going up and down the stairs, actually came all the way down into the lobby. He could have saved himself.
Yep.
And now he wanted to be with those firefighters to go back upstairs.
I'm sure he felt like he knew the lay of the land, where to proceed safely, how to get up there, and he felt he could help and show them and help others. There's only so much you could do with your bare hands and a bandana, and I'm sure he helped everyone that he possibly could. But there were a lot of injured people, trapped people that before the buildings collapsed could have been saved, obviously, but for the implosion of the building. So he felt, I'm sure, that he wanted to help them, and he knew how to get up there, and he was going to continue to give and risk his life. And unfortunately, the buildings didn't stand up.
Yeah. And what's the background on the red bandana?
So he got that as from his dad. His father always carried a blue one, and he loved his dad, obviously, and wanted to be just like him. And so they gave him a red one so mom would know whose was whose in the wash. And from the moment he got it, it was just this thing. He would have it. He would wear it under his helmet when he played lacrosse for Boston College. He would clean up spills. He would use it in games with his friends as a young kid. And he just always carried a red bandana. It was just his thing. And it turned out to incredible. So can you imagine that the family's devastated? They lost their only son, this great kid. And because of a piece of fabric, they're learning now that he saved others, gave his life to save at least 10 other people. And it certainly shifted their perspective on their loss, right? Certainly, they still cry for him every day. They miss him, and their heart breaks having lost him. But it certainly changed their perspective on their loss. And as you see in the film, he's honored in different ways by his friends and family, communities, but also total strangers. There are babies named after him all over the country. There's artwork and songs written about him, sermons by clergymen about him. And his story continues to be told, and he lives on as we continue to talk about him, remember him, and personify and honor his values.
I have to say that in the film, it was very emotional, especially the dad that you knew, the banker. When he was being interviewed, he got very emotional, and I was like, oh my God, it was just really emotional. You can see that it was a close-knit family. So between the dad being so emotional in the film and the mom, you said it before, and I like to talk a little bit more about that. The mother was almost like obsessed, and she had like a sixth sense. It was crazy. Even though at first they didn't find the body, but then they found the body. She just kept on looking and looking for more. Yeah. It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
Quite amazing.
Yeah. And as a filmmaker, I needed to convey that, passage of time, but, relentless, persistent searching. And so we did that in different ways. And keep in mind, I never made a movie before, right? So I had the passion, but I just had to continue to experiment and figure it out. And that's why it took 6 years. It would take 2 or 3, but as my wife likes to say, things happen for a reason. And because it took so long, now the 9/11 Museum opens up. So I'm about 4 years into the movie, and President Obama is speaking to the world and all these dignitaries at the opening of the 9/11 National Museum. And in his speech, he spent most of his speech talking about Wells and Wells' story. And now I have my opening speaker for my film. I have my opening speaker for the trailer, and I have content later on that I would not otherwise have, but for the fact that it took that long. So certainly, I don't know if it was accidental or divine intervention, but it certainly helped, because when you watch the trailer and or the opening scene and you see the president of the United States talking about a man with a red bandana, that adds this gravitas, level of importance that you're about to watch a really incredible story. And that certainly was the case. But to someone who's unassociated, unknown to the story, it allowed me to quickly lay that foundation and have that opening, which was, I think, really helpful for me.
So I want to remind the audience, I know you said it before, but I'm just going to remind again, you had zero experience in writing, directing, and producing movies. What made you think that you can write, direct, and produce a full-length documentary?
So interestingly, the writing, directing, and producing parts were not the challenging parts, and I'll tell you why in a second. The challenging parts were editing, lights, sound, because those are skills like using, an Avid software system, or how to get the right angles for lighting. Like, those are things that people train to do. And so when I was a duck out of water, I would hire good people, rely on good experts who have my same vision, who we were aligned, and they would help me get through that, right? But as an attorney, I've been representing clients and writing court papers on their behalf, whether it's a personal injury case or commercial litigation case. And I'm telling their story, I'm backing it up by research, and I'm presenting it to the court. So there's not much different from writing a story about a person that's owed money, and writing a story about a hero, and then backing it up with your evidence, which is, videos and photographs. We use computer animations, we did recreations, and that's backing up the story. So I felt really at home researching as a lawyer. That's what we do, right? With writing, with telling storytelling. It's a more creative medium, but I felt comfortable because I've been writing, telling stories as an attorney forever. And so, and then the producing is my entrepreneurship, right? I've been running a business and hiring and firing and supervising and managing people. So budgets, finances, sourcing product, and services. Those are things, those are skills that I already had. So the new stuff was the actual film stuff, where I had to bring in experts and oversee them. And I'll tell you, the hardest part is distribution of any movie. No matter how hard it is to make a movie, and it's really hard. It's a commitment, and you need the passion. Otherwise, you're not going to finish it. In fact, there was a husband and wife team that was actually going to make a story about Wells. They started filming, and then they abandoned the project for personal reasons. So, I could not disappoint the Crowthers, right? I had to get it done. I wanted to get it done, and I had the passion to get it done. And I'm as passionate now about sharing with you and your audience about Wells and the story as I was when I first heard it. And so if you're going to shift gears, if you're going to push yourself and get out of your comfort zone, make sure you really love what you're doing. Make sure you have that passion. And in my case, I had such an amazing story to work with that I would urge you, make sure that you have really good clay to mold. So if you're going to write a book, make sure it's a really good topic you're going to write your book about, whatever it might be, because that'll help you get through that. And for me, I could tell you unequivocally that the greatest gift in my life that I was ever given was when Allison and Jeff Crowther gave me permission to tell the story about their son. And literally they thanked me and have thanked me dozens of times. And I just thanked them right back. I'm like, no, thank you for allowing me to do this. Yeah. And it's just been an incredible journey with them, and an honor to be in any way associated with Wells and his heroics and his legacy.
What do you think is the biggest takeaway that you'd like the viewing audience to have of the man with the red bandana? what would you,
The
what
biggest
what they can take
takeaway,
away?
I think I said it before, think a little bit less about yourself and a little bit more about others.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and it could be, I gave simple examples of how you could do that. But a second lesson, because I already gave a lesson, my biggest lesson. So my
Yes.
second biggest lesson would be, when you give back, when you're involved with something that's bigger than you, that may outlive you, whether it's running for office, writing a book, creating some type of legacy project, that is a rewarding experience. That gives you a form of happiness, not the traditional type of happiness that people pursue, which is the parties and the great meals and travel. And not that there's nothing wrong with that type of happiness, but you can't have those highs every day. In fact, look at how many rock stars and celebrities kill themselves and or die from drugs or whatever, trying to have this high every day.
All the time.
You can't have rock star happiness every day, but certainly enjoy those experiences. Birth of children and family members and weddings and travel. Great, but you can't be there all day. What other happiness levels are there? Well, there's the other type, which is called flow happiness. When you're engaged in something that you love to do, it could be writing, it could be crossword puzzles, painting, running, tennis, and just time evaporates and you're enjoying that activity.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly pursue those high-level fun activities. Certainly do your flow activities, but add to your regimen purpose-driven activities, giving back activities. And if you do those and keep those 3 cups full, not overfull, but full, you will be optimally happy throughout your life. And I could tell you, working on Wells's story and the money that I put in, I started talking about this earlier, where I knew I was not going to make money on it. I knew I was going to lose money on it. And that's why I had to fund it myself. I couldn't ask friends, family, or even strangers to fund a film that was going to lose money, right? So I knew that money, which was substantial, and I'm not Mark Zuckerberg, I knew that it was money for a legacy project to share with the world, to give back to the world. And it was money well spent for me because literally tens of thousands of people have seen this film, been impacted by the film, have shared Wells's story. And it's just an incredible ROI that I was able to generate by giving some finances towards this. And of course, a lot of sweat equity, right?
Well, on behalf of everybody that's watched the film or going to be watching the film, we all want to thank you. It's really, especially for the first time, it's a great film, and you also got awards for the film. So what awards did you guys?
I got a humanitarian award, an audience award. I won 3 awards. I got to go to film festivals, walk red carpets. This was great. I walked the red carpet right after Pierce Brosnan, 007,
right.
And I was afraid no one would know who I am. And the way it works is they have a dry erase board and they write your name and your role, and then they hold it up. The photographer shoots that, and then they shoot you, because a lot of these photographers have no idea who, a lot of these people are. So I was reluctant. I'm like, they gotta know me. They're gonna not even take my picture. But because of that, they had the information. And as soon as I stepped on the red carpet, there was a photographer named Sherry who I had met during the film festival. This was in Napa. And I talked to everyone. I'm kind to everyone at any level. And I just saw her shooting some photographs earlier, and we became friends and we were talking. I introduced myself. And as soon as I stepped on the red carpet, Sherry said, "Matt." I'm like, "Sherry."
Oh, that's funny.
So all
that's
the other
really
photographers like, he must be so important because she recognizes him. So they're snapping away. And then someone asked me a question that I never thought I would ever be asked in my life, which was, "Who are you wearing?"
I'm sure your wife dressed you well.
Exactly, right? So again, I've had so many great experiences because of this. And I just mentioned one at the Napa Film Festival, but I got to direct Gwyneth Paltrow,
I was just going to ask about Gwyneth. How'd you get her to narrate the documentary?
Let me answer that. But first, let me say, I directed Gwyneth Paltrow. Let me put that a different way. Matt Weiss, the traffic lawyer with no experience whatsoever, no connections in the filmmaking world, got to direct an award-winning, Oscar-winning actress. Like, how crazy is that? How much would people pay on Charity Buzz or some other website for that right?
Right.
And again, because I gave, right? It sounds counterintuitive, but when you give, you get back, and you may not know how and why and what opportunity is going to come your way. But I got to have that incredible experience. And I mentioned the red carpet experience, and that's just two. And I'm not trying to say it to boast about me. That's what I use my Facebook page for. What I'm trying to use those examples for is that it works. It really works. And it sounds counterintuitive, but I urge the audience to try it. When you give in earnest without expectation of return, not pay it forward, but just give, things will come back to you in such incredible ways that, and it'll make you happier and more rewarding. That fill that last cup of happiness. And so with Gwyneth Paltrow, the way I got her was by asking, right? I would urge all your audience members who are listening now, when you have a project, a challenge, any obstacle that you're trying to overcome, don't keep it inside. Don't share it with your immediate group. You tell everyone you meet, share it with everyone, because you never know who can help you and how they can help you. And literally, I told everyone that I was looking for, an A-list actor, not actress, actor to narrate my film. And I felt having a known celebrity or actor would add cachet, would get the film festivals more interested, get more people to watch the film. And so I told so many people, and as enthusiastically on the first time as the 150th time, I asked and found ultimately a labor lawyer, one of my colleagues in the bar, who said, oh, my friend I do fantasy football with, he has a PR agency and he works with Alec Baldwin. And he made the intro, and he thought Alec would be a good fit. I did too. His voice is great. And almost as an afterthought, he said, and I'll share it with Gwyneth as well. I'm like, great. And we hung up the phone, and I'm like, he never even said Gwyneth Paltrow, but I assumed it was Gwyneth Paltrow because how many Gwyneths are there in Hollywood?
Right.
And I said to myself, Matt, you're an idiot. Why would you be looking for an actor? You should be looking for an actress all along. Right. And the reason I said that is because this is a hard story, right? With plane crashes and carnage, death, Wells's, demise, and a woman's voice adds some balance and softness. And it's a male-dominated story too, right? You got Wells, his father, you got firefighters, mostly men. So a woman added soft. So I was actually hoping that Alec was a no and Gwyneth was a yes, which is what it turned out to be. And I'm like, this is great. I'm so excited. And I just had one little obstacle, which is I needed the Crowthers' blessing. I didn't need their permission contractually because wasn't needed under our agreement, but I wanted to make sure that they were happy with her as the spokesperson for their son's story. Sure. And I was nervous they might say no, because I don't know what they were going to say. And when I presented it, they were tickle pink, happy as can be. I had found research and videos and photos and things. And actually I found survivors that they had never met, they're well saved. And so the journey's been incredible for us as a group. And this was just another incredible, happy moment along the way, this journey of filmmaking and telling Wells' story. And so they were happy. But then the most incredible part was Jeff said, do you know that my brother, which would have been Wells' uncle, John Crowther, was roommates in New York City with Bruce Paltrow, Gwyneth's father?
Oh.
I'm like, what?
Really?
Yeah, they were in the theater together. They did plays together. They would go drinking together, and they would cash the unemployment checks together.
Huh.
I'm like, that's incredible. He says, well, not only is John, connected to Bruce, but he's also connected to Wells's mom, Blythe Danner. I'm like, what?
What?
Yeah, I'm like, that's incredible. So John Crowther went to high school in Pennsylvania with Harry Danner, Blythe's older brother. And apparently he had a little crush on Blythe, actually took her out for a date or two, and knew her. And I'm like, that's amazing. So I call up John because I had met him earlier and I wanted to get a little more flavor and context. You see, Gwyneth was a verbal yes. And even if she had written and signed an agreement at that point, she could still say no. And what was I going to do, right? So I felt like getting more information and passing that on to her would solidify that verbal yes, right? So, as an attorney, you always want to kind of lock in and solidify, seal the deal, if you will.
Mhm.
And I knew I couldn't really seal it in a writing, which is a typical way to seal deals, but more in this case by this familial connection. So I call up John Crowther, and he says, oh yeah, one day Bruce was putting on a play in the city, and I went and looked at all the list of actresses that were auditioning, and I saw Blythe was coming in a few days. So I came back and I actually introduced Blythe to Bruce. So Wells's uncle introduced Glenn's parents to one another. And then, years later, John was visiting Bruce, and Gwyneth was a little girl, and she fell out of a tree, broke her arm, and he was actually holding her in the car, crying as John,
such a small world,
was rushing to the hospital. And she independently accepted this project. She has never narrated a documentary before this, right? So it's not something she's used to doing or looking to do, but she had read the script. She said, I thought it was amazing. And that's the only reason she did it.
Amazing.
And so just incredible karma, kismet. You could say that Allison putting the pieces together, that a New York Times reporter out of literally tens of thousands of people that were witnesses and survivors, right? Out of those 10,000 people, he found the two that saw Wells, remembered the Red Bandana, put it in his article, that she read the article and put it together. I mean, you could say that's coincidence, or you could say that's divine intervention. You know, you could say that Boston College, where Wells went, their team mascot is the eagle, America's symbol, right? He could have gone to Syracuse, the Orange Men, which would not be America's symbol, right? Right. I mean, there's a lot of karma, kismet, divine intervention with this story that's just incredible. And I'm just touching the iceberg.
And Matt, let me ask you a question, because this came from the audience, from Tal, who says it's an amazing story. And she said, how did this experience change your life, or did it?
A lot of ways, a lot of ways. First of all, I think it saved my life in a certain way, metaphorically, right? Because he saved 10 people that day, but arguably he saved an 11th. I did a TED talk about courage that you could Google. It was done at Boston College. And I say that, you know, I have been practicing law for many years. And, you know, when you help someone, the case is over, and then no one cares about the case anymore. No one cares about the case, even remembers the case, right? But now, when I work on this script and then made this film and now share it with your audience, and hopefully they'll watch the film on Amazon, I'm continuing to impact with my work product, right? Where when, as an attorney, that has a finite shelf life, right? So it's now I'm involved with produced a feature film with Chaz Palminteri and Don Johnson. I'm producing another doc that's coming out next year, and it shifted my career trajectory, the time that I spend, my free time that I created by getting out of my law firm, which we talked about earlier, and allowed me to do projects and involve with things that I'm passionate about, but also that will have broad impact on a lot more people than an attorney who just, you know, represents people in cases that don't have, you know, precedential value beyond the litigants, if that makes sense.
Can you talk about the projects that you're working on? You said that you have a documentary coming up.
So Vault was a feature film. It came out a couple years ago. It's on Amazon as well. It's got Chaz Palminteri, Don Johnson, Samira Wiley from Orange is the Next Black, and Theo Rossi from Sons of Anarchy. Some cameos from Burt Young from Rocky, and Big Pussy from The Sopranos is in it. So Vincent Pastore. And so can you imagine, doing a documentary is one thing. Now, my distributor liked working with me, saw that I was a go-getter. I followed through with my commitments, smart, and he invited me to help be a producer, which is the highest level of any film, with him and a few other producers on a feature film. So now I go and transition from a documentary to now sets and costumes, makeup, wardrobe, actors, scripts, which is very different from a set of a documentary, which is usually, you know, more smaller, 2 or 3 people plus the person you're interviewing. And what an incredible experience that was. So I earlier mentioned about experiences and collecting them and and when you give, you get. And this was another one, because I gave and financially committed to this film and to Wells's story and sharing it. I was able to produce this film and be right behind the director in my chair, watching, listening, and as they act out scenes, and just incredible stuff.
Terrific movie. I watch it. Terrific movie.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, based on a true story, a heist that happened in 1975. And basically these small bit crooks decided to rob from the mob. Not
a smart thing.
Yeah, $30 million heist. That was one of the largest heists in U.S. history. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then you mentioned the documentary. It's coming out early next year. It's about Muhammad Ali. Ken Burns just came out with a multi-part doc about him. This is a little different. This is focusing on his son, his only namesake and only biological son, Muhammad Ali Jr. And if you can imagine, the greatest of all time, right? A great humanitarian, great athlete, great spokesperson. But as a father, you know, not the same. And I don't want to spoil anything about the film, but you know, if you have to stand in the shoes of the greatest of all time, it's already hard to stand in the shoes of a successful father or mother as a child. Can you imagine having to be in the shoes of the greatest of all time? And so that's coming out next year. And now I'm co-producing a film with Megan Fox. It's a horror heist movie, which is a lot of fun. And I'm writing 2 screenplays and doing some other projects, a small music video I'm directing. So yeah, I'm having
You're a busy man.
so much fun. It's sexy, it's fun, it's cool, it's rewarding, and I enjoy it. I don't look at it as work. It's just fun, and I can pick and choose whatever projects I want and not have to just pick anything because there's a dollar attached to it, if that makes sense.
So before we end, I just have to mention one thing. There was a little bit of Hitchcockian in the documentary. Hitchcock is famous for having a cameo in the film. And because I know you, I happened to see you in a golf cart in the film. Were you thinking Hitchcock there?
You know, it's funny. I liked it because I wasn't in the film and I was so all in on telling the story. And it's not about me, right? It's about telling and sharing Wells's story and their family story. You know, we mentioned Allison and how she never gave up and she had this sixth sense because she's very spiritual. And I want to convey that because that's her, right? I don't want to put my own fingerprints on it, but it just so happened that we thought that this there's a golf outing where they tie bandanas to each side of the golf cart, and there's like 50 of them. And we thought, or I thought it'd be a great shot if we show one and then pull it out, and then you see 50 of them right behind it. And so I told my camera person was there, and it was just us two. So I'm like, I'll jump in, I'll do it. You know, and it turned out it made the film. I didn't cut myself. But an interesting tidbit that many people don't realize is there are 3 times within the film where Wells is subtly in the film, and it all happened by accident or divine intervention. So I'll leave you with this story. So I was going to film one Saturday, and I'm telling my wife, like on a Wednesday, oh, Saturday I won't be around. I'm up in Nyack. I'm interviewing Allison and doing some B-roll where you shoot the firehouse where he was a junior firefighter and his school and things like that. And she's like, that's fine. Which kid you taking? I have 3 children. She's like, I'm like, what? She's like, you're not leaving with 3 kids. You're taking a kid. Pick one. So I ended up taking my son, Daniel, who was a sweetheart. And at the time was 12 years old. Actually, maybe even younger, 10, whatever. And so Allison gives him a bandana when she meets him because she likes to do that, especially with children. And and Daniel already knew the story. And so we went to the firehouse and we're shooting the truck. It's a red metallic side and with the logo of the firehouse. And Daniel, my son, was not in the shot, but he was behind the shot walking, kind of balancing, and he's holding the bandana like behind him like this, you know, like it's just draped behind him. And you could see this kid with a bandana in the reflection. And then he passes through, and then we got our shot. And a few days later, it dawned on me, what a great way to honor Allison's spirituality about Wells living on and talking to her in certain ways, even after he's gone. And by having Wells's ghost or spirit in the film. So instead of using a shot where Daniel passed through, we actually used a shot of this kid walking through. And you may not notice, a lot of people don't, but we actually did 3 kind of spirits of wells that are in the film. In fact, if anyone finds the other 2, you could email me at maninredbandana@gmail.com, and I'll send you a free bandana. There's 2 other spirits of wells in the film where we honor Wells is actually Allison's spirituality, and have this Alfred Hitchcock-esque experience, right? And so yeah, so good stuff. You know, I really had a lot of fun. It's a different way to be creative. You know, as a lawyer, you can be creative, but you're within constraints. And as a filmmaker, you don't have as many constraints. So as you can see, I'm enjoying this trajectory that this one lunch with my banker has led me on and literally changed the path of my life.
That's fabulous. And my suggestion is continue doing the Hitchcock, you know, continue to be in your own films. Just get yourself in there, because I'll be watching the films. I'll be looking for you. Well, Matt, thank you so much. You said it all. Really appreciate you being on Coffee with Krav. I think the audience will really get a lot out of it. Really appreciate it. When we're really looking forward to more and more of your projects that we'll be watching. And for those of you, I just want to make a reminder that our next Coffee with Krav will be November 2nd, 10 o'clock a.m. So it's the first Tuesday of the month at 10 o'clock. We'll see you there. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.